Who's actually going to get the most out of a 16 terabyte, 4-bay NAS that ships with enterprise-grade drives, a Celeron quad-core CPU and a 2.5 gigabits Ethernet port? Who should walk away because the price tag and the feature set don't line up with their day-to-day needs? And, for the average person who just wants a reliable place to store family photos, stream a few movies, and maybe back up a couple of laptops, does it feel worth every dollar? Those are the questions that keep me up at night whenever a new all-in-one NAS shows up on the market. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent the last few weeks setting up the DiscTech DS425 Plus in a couple of very different environments. First in a home office where I needed a single point of storage for 2 work laptops, a desktop, and a growing library of 4K video files. Then in a small creative studio where 3 freelancers share a single media vault for raw footage and project archives. My goal wasn't just to boot it up and watch the lights blink, but to actually see how it behaves when you're moving terabytes of data around, pulling a 1080p stream to a living room TV, and juggling a handful of simultaneous backups. Let's start with the basics that matter once the box is open. The DS425 Plus comes with 4 4TB enterprise hard drives already installed. That's 16 terabytes of raw capacity right out of the gate, which means you don't have to hunt for compatible disks or worry about drive warranty mismatches. The drives themselves are built for 24/7 operation, so they're designed to handle the constant spin-ups and spin-downs you get in a NAS that's always on. In my home office setup I configured the array in RAID 5, which gave me a nice blend of space and redundancy. If one drive fails, you still have a full copy of everything while you replace the bad unit. The fact that DiscTech already installed the drive saved me a couple of hours of research and a handful of which drive goes where questions. The processor is an Intel Celeron J4125, 4 cores clocked at 2.7 GHz. It's not a high-end Xeon, but for the kind of workloads a small office or a media enthusiast home usually throws at a NAS, it's more than adequate. When I was copying a 10 GB folder of raw video clips from my workstation to the NAS, the transfer completed in roughly the same time it would have taken on a direct USB 3.1 connection. The real test came when I tried to transcode a 4K video on the fly to a lower bitrate for streaming to a tablet. The Celeron handled the conversion without dropping frames, though it did take a minute or two longer than a dedicated media server with a more powerful CPU. If you're planning to run heavy transcoding for multiple streams simultaneously, you might start feeling the limits, but for occasional media playback it's comfortably within the sweet spot. RAM is 2 GB DDR4, which sounds modest, but the DS425 Plus runs a lightweight version of the DiscTech OS that's optimized for NAS tasks. In practice I saw no lag when browsing the web-based file manager, creating shared folders, or setting up scheduled backups. The only time the memory seemed a little tight was when I enabled the built-in photo gallery app and tried to generate thumbnails for the entire 16 terabytes library in one go. The process took longer than I'd like, and the UI was a bit sluggish until the thumbnail cache built up. For most users who aren't planning to run dozens of apps at once, 2 GB feels sufficient, but power users who want to stack surveillance, virtualization, or heavy analytics should consider a model with expandable memory. Connectivity is where the DS425 Plus really shines for its price class. The 2.5 gigabits Ethernet port gives you roughly double the bandwidth of a standard gigabit link, which translates into faster file transfers and smoother streaming, especially when multiple devices are pulling data at once. In my small studio, 3 editors were pulling 4K assets from the NAS while a 4th was uploading raw footage. The network never clogged. Each user saw steady speeds around 200,250 megabytes per second, while above the typical 120,150 megabytes per second ceiling on a 1 gigabit network. The only downside is that you need a compatible switch or router to take full advantage of that speed. If your home network is still on a basic gigabit router, you won't see the boost, and you might wonder whether the extra cost of the faster NIC is justified. Now, who should actually buy this thing? If you're a home user with a modest media collection, say a few hundred gigabytes of movies and some photos, you'll probably get more bang for your buck with a cheaper 2-bay unit or even a simple external SSD. The DS425 Plus is overkill for that scenario, and the price reflects the enterprise-grade drives and the larger enclosure. On the flip side, if you run a small business that needs a central backup hub, or you're a photographer/videographer who constantly moves large files between devices, the built-in 16 terabytes and the reliable drive selection become